He was the cold Alpha King, cursed, heartless, untouchable. Until one night, a starving Omega girl walked into his kingdom, and his wolf woke up for the first time in 30 years. But when she touched him, she didn't just awaken his soul. She broke a seal that was never meant to be broken. Love like this doesn't save you. It consumes you. The frost-bitten wind of Ashen Ridge howled through the crumbling outskirts, carrying the smell of wood smoke and despair. Elara Thornvale pressed her back against the butcher's cold stone wall, her thin shawl doing nothing against the biting cold. Her stomach clenched again, the third day without food, but hunger was a pain she'd learned to quiet long ago. Better hunger than attention. Attention got Omega's hurt. "Move along, Scrap." A beta guard sneered as he passed, flicking a discarded bone at her feet. Filthy scent ruins the air. Elara kept her head low, her wild chestnut hair falling over her silver-gray eyes. She knew better than to respond. In Ashen Ridge, hierarchy was law. Alphas ruled, betas enforced, and omegas survived if they were lucky. Once, she had been more than this. Her mother, a seamstress for the late Alpha Regent, had told her bedtime stories of moonlit bonds and wolves who loved fiercely. But that was before the plague took her family and the wars took everything else. Now, Elara existed as a ghost, packless, nameless, scraping through life in the cold shadow of a kingdom that no longer cared. Tonight, though, was different. She gripped the worn strap of a small satchel. All her savings inside, 3 dull silver coins. Enough, she prayed, to buy medicine for Arlen, her younger brother, whose fever had turned to coughing blood. The healers had turned her away weeks ago. Omega's waste remedies, they'd said. But the Lunar Convergence Festival in Frostmark Citadel might be her only chance. Once a year, the Cold King opened the capital to all wolves, even the lowborn, for trade and petitions. 6 hours on foot. One last chance. One last hope. Elara Thornvale, came a voice behind her, smooth as oil. Her blood ran cold. Varen Blacktail, the alpha who'd made it his sport to remind her she didn't belong. A scar ran from his temple to his jaw, splitting his smirk into something monstrous. Heading to the Citadel, little Omega? He taunted, stepping closer, his aura pressing down like a physical weight. You'll freeze before you reach the gates. Elara clenched her fists, but said nothing. Oh, come now, Varen drawled, his breath hot and sour. Maybe the king will take pity on a pretty Omega like you. They say he's so cold, he can't feel the bond at all. Perhaps your scent will thaw him. His chuckle was cruel. Then again, he might just tear your throat out for the insult. She didn't answer, she just walked.
Past him.
Past the market's dying embers. Past the laughter that followed her like a curse. The road to Frostmark wound through black forests and frozen marsh. By the time the Citadel's towering walls loomed from the mist, Elara's boots had split at the seams, and her feet bled through the snow. She stopped to catch her breath and frowned. The cuts were already closing. Too fast. Again. She stared at her palms, the skin knitting before her eyes. She'd noticed this before, small wounds that healed in hours, fever that never stayed long. She told herself it was luck. But deep down, she knew it wasn't normal. Keep moving, she muttered to herself. Just get to the gates. The Citadel of Frostmark was carved from black stone and frozen waterfalls, its towers rising like the spines of some slumbering beast. Wolves of every rank filled the outer courtyard, their scents clashing in the icy air. Music, laughter, and the metallic tang of dominance filled her senses. As she passed through the gate, a guard wrinkled his nose. Omega, he announced loudly. Heads turned. Conversations died. Elara kept walking, ignoring the stares that burned holes through her back. She just needed one healer. Just one. But as she reached the heart of the festival, a sudden force slammed through her chest, like her heart had exploded outward. Her wolf, silent for years, awoke screaming. Elara staggered, clutching her chest, her breath catching in raw terror. Every nerve in her body buzzed, every sense sharpened until the noise of the crowd became deafening. And through it all, Her wolf whispered one word, over and over.
Mate.
No, she whispered. No, not now. The crowd parted. Silence rippled outward like a wave. At the top of the citadel's grand stairs stood a man, tall, broad, with eyes like glacial fire. King Darius Valar, ruler of the North, known as the Frozen Alpha. He was legend, the king whose wolf had gone dormant 30 years ago, the man who had never taken a mate, never smiled, never thawed. Until now. Their eyes met. The air vanished from her lungs. His control shattered. She heard the crack of stone beneath his grip as his power surged like a blizzard unleashed. Find her, he growled, voice low, dangerous and human. Alara didn't wait.
She ran.
The sound of pursuit was everywhere. Boots striking stone, the metallic snarl of drawn blades, wolves howling orders that turned the festival's laughter into panic. Alara sprinted through a maze of merchant tents, her breath ragged in the cold air. Her wolf raged beneath her skin, clawing for release. Stop her, someone shouted. By order of the king. Alara dove beneath a draped table and crawled through a mess of spilled fruit and splintered crates. Her heart thundered. She didn't know why the king's voice had felt like it was inside her bones, why her wolf had screamed mate, why her body still tingled from the pull of that gaze, but she did know one thing. If the frozen king caught her, she would not survive it.
Outside, chaos reigned.
She glimpsed soldiers sniffing the air, shifting into half-forms, eyes glowing gold in the torchlight. Their power radiated in waves that made the ground hum. An Omega? One scoffed.
Impossible.
No Omega could trigger a bond that strong. Then explain the king's roar. Another hissed. His wolf is awake. Alara's chest tightened. Wolves whispered stories about Darius Valar. How his wolf had gone silent when he was barely 20, how healers claimed his bond sense was dead. Some said the goddess had cursed him, that his iceborn blood was never meant to love. And now, because of her, he was awake again. She slipped through the side of the courtyard and into the lower tunnels. The air there was heavy with the scent of iron and earth. A torch flickered ahead, then a shadow moved. Alara Thornvale, said a soft, familiar voice. The torchlight revealed old Mira, the herb seller who had given Alara scraps and kindness when no one else would. Her eyes were wide with alarm. Child, what did you do? Alara's throat was dry. I didn't mean to. I only looked at him. Looked. Myra's tone trembled. The king's wolf has been dead for 30 years. You woke it. Alara shook her head. That's not possible.
I'm nobody.
Perhaps, Mira said, but fate doesn't choose nobodies without reason. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. There are rumors, girl. Rumors of old blood running through your line. Silver blood. Alara froze. She remembered the strange way her wounds healed, the unnatural warmth that burned in her veins when she was afraid. What does that mean? That you were never meant to live hidden among Omegas. Before Alara could answer, the ground trembled. A deep, furious growl echoed through the tunnels, a sound too large to belong to any man. The king. Myra's eyes went wide. Run, child. His wolf has your scent. Alara fled into the storm above. Snow lashed her face as she burst into the open courtyard again, her cloak streaming behind her. The moon hung full and merciless above the citadel. And standing in the center of the square was a creature out of nightmare and beauty, a wolf the size of a horse, fur white as ice, eyes glowing with frozen fire. The frozen king in his true form. The massive wolf's head swung toward her. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Then it began to move. Slowly, inexorably, like a glacier grinding toward shore. The crowd fell to their knees, foreheads pressed to the ground in submission. Everyone but Alara. Her legs wouldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Her wolf whimpered inside her, torn between terror and a pulse so deep it hurt. When the white wolf stopped a few paces away, she saw that the glow in its eyes wasn't only fury. It was hunger. Alara Thornvale, said a voice that wasn't a voice, vibrating inside her skull.
Mean it.
Her mouth went dry.
No.
The wolf's form blurred, bones shifting, fur receding. In seconds, King Darius stood before her, tall and bare-chested, his skin steaming in the cold. Scars crossed his torso. Old, brutal, and unhealed until now. His gaze was colder than the wind. "You run from your king." His voice rolled like thunder. "I run from a predator," she spat, though her whole body trembled. "You would kill me if you knew what I am." A muscle in his jaw ticked. "What you are," he said softly, "is the first thing that's made me feel in 30 years. Her wolf quivered at the sound of it. The king stepped closer, the snow melting beneath his feet. "You think I want this?" he whispered. The goddess's cruel joke, to pair the might of an alpha king with an omega who smells of fear? "Then reject me," Elara said, meeting his eyes despite the pull that made her heart ache. His expression darkened. "You think I haven't tried? My wolf would rip me apart before it let me deny the bond." A ripple of movement behind him, his beta, a tall man with copper hair, approached cautiously. "Your Majesty," he said, "please." The crowd. The king's power flared, silencing him. "This is no crowd's affair," Darius said, eyes never leaving hers. "This is fate's cruelty made flesh." And in that moment, Elara realized something terrifying. The king's wolf wasn't angry at her. It was angry at fate itself for binding him to something he didn't want to need. And still, despite every instinct to flee, despite every bruise the world had given her, she couldn't look away. Because in those frozen eyes, for the first time in her life, she saw someone else's loneliness reflected back at her. When Elara woke, it wasn't to snow or street noises. It was to silence. Soft, suffocating silence. She blinked, groggy, the faint scent of cedar and frost filling her lungs. The walls around her gleamed faintly, frost glass, enchanted stone mined from the northern peaks. Even the air hummed with containment spells. She wasn't in a prison. She was in a containment ward. And judging by the carved sigils pulsing faint blue light around the door, the ward wasn't meant for omegas. It was meant for creatures far more dangerous. "Elara Thornvale," came a voice from the doorway. She turned sharply. A man stood there, broad, severe, his eyes the color of tarnished gold. Unlike the guards, his scent carried beta authority. Sharp, disciplined, loyal. "I am Commander Run Valen," he said. "The king's right hand." Elara braced herself. "Then you're here to throw me in the dungeons properly?" To her surprise, Run almost smiled. "If that were the order, you wouldn't be here to ask the question." He stepped forward, setting down a tray of bread, stew, and water.
"Eat."
"The king has commanded you be kept alive." "Alive," she echoed bitterly. "How generous." His smile vanished. "You woke something inside him, girl. The court is in uproar. The Alpha Lords want you dead before you weaken him further." "I didn't do anything," she snapped. "I just looked at him." Run's expression softened, almost pitying. "That's how it begins." He left before she could ask what he meant. Hours passed. She ate in silence, staring at the frost-rimed window that overlooked the city far below. From this height, Frostmark looked unreal, like a kingdom carved from glass and shadow. She thought of Arlen, still coughing in the village, and despair nearly broke her. Then the door opened. He filled the frame like a storm, tall, composed, wrapped in black fur and silver armor. His presence shifted the air itself. The frozen king. "Your Majesty," Elara whispered, instinct forcing her to bow. "Do not bow," he said. His tone was rough, as if used to command beyond warfare. She straightened, meeting his gaze. "Then what do you want from me?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes swept over her, sharp, assessing, predatory. But when they reached her wrists, where faint scars from old rope burns still marked her skin, something in his expression cracked. "You heal fast," he said at last. "It's always been that way." "How fast?" Elara hesitated. "Wounds close in hours. Sometimes minutes." He exhaled through his teeth. "Silver blood." Her heart skipped. "What?" "Your bloodline," he said quietly. It explains the pull, the resonance. The goddess doesn't make random bonds. He circled her like a wolf measuring prey. My wolf was cursed 30 years ago by silver magic. Only silver blood could awaken it. Then I cursed you again by existing, she shot back. What a tragic fate, being linked to a nobody Omega. He froze mid-step. For a second, she saw the emotion flash through his icy control, pain, regret, rage at himself more than her. Then it was gone, buried under steel composure. You misunderstand, he said. You didn't curse me. You woke me. He moved closer. She felt the heat radiating from his skin despite the cold aura that surrounded him. When my wolf died, he continued softly, I felt nothing for decades.
No anger, no joy, no desire.
His eyes locked on hers. Until you. Her throat tightened. You hate that, don't you? Feeling again. He didn't deny it. Feeling is dangerous. It makes kings weak. Then maybe weakness is what your kingdom needs. That earned her a sharp intake of breath, as if she'd struck him. He studied her for a long, unbearable moment. You are either the bravest Omega I've ever met, he murmured, or the most foolish. Maybe both, she said. Silence stretched. Their wolves stirred beneath their skins, restless, drawn to each other like magnets despite everything that stood between them. Finally, he stepped back. You will remain in the Citadel until I understand this bond. No harm will come to you. That's not protection, she said. That's imprisonment. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. Would you rather I let my wolf hunt you through the snow again? Her heart hammered. She hated that the memory of his scent, pine, smoke, cold iron, still made her pulse quicken. Why not reject me? She asked quietly. You're strong enough. His jaw clenched. Rejection means death for one of us. The goddess binds mate pairs by soul, not choice. Then maybe she made a mistake. For the first time, he smiled, a hollow, bitter thing. The goddess doesn't make mistakes. She makes lessons. He turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. Rest, Elara Thornvale. Tomorrow you'll see what the kingdom expects of its queen, whether you accept the title or not. The door closed behind him, with a sound like ice cracking. Elara sank onto the bed, clutching the blanket to her chest. She didn't know if she wanted to cry or scream. The wolf inside her was pacing, restless, desperate to run to the very male she should fear. Somewhere deep inside, something whispered back to the king's unspoken confession. You're not the only one who feels alive again. The next morning dawned gray and cold, the kind of light that stripped color from everything it touched. Elara stood in front of a mirror that wasn't hers, staring at the girl reflected there. Someone, most likely a servant afraid to defy the king, had left a gown for her. It was made of deep blue silk trimmed with white fur, far too fine for her station, far too revealing for her comfort. When she touched the fabric, it shimmered faintly, laced with spell thread to keep her warm. She hated that it smelled faintly of pine and smoke, his scent. A knock came. Elara Thornvale, Commander Run's voice rumbled through the door. It's time. She hesitated, then whispered to her wolf, Stay quiet. Stay small. But the creature within her was restless, pulsing with a low, insistent warmth ever since last night's encounter. The grand hall of Frostmark Citadel was a cathedral of ice and gold. High banners rippled with the sigils of ancient wolf houses, while nobles and alphas lined the marble floor in semicircles. Every scent hit her at once: dominance, suspicion, disgust. And at the far end of the hall sat King Darius Vaylor, upon a throne carved from glacier crystal. His posture was perfect control, hands resting on the armrests, jaw set, eyes unreadable. Yet she could feel his wolf under the surface, watching her. Always watching. Run guided her forward until she stood in the center of the hall. She stands accused, someone called, of using forbidden blood magic to ensnare the king. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Lies, shouted another, older voice, Mira. The old herb seller stood among the servants at the back, face pale but defiant. That girl has no power except the one the goddess gave her. Then let us see it, said Lord Varric of the northern clans, his silver hair gleaming. He was enormous even in human form, his eyes gleaming with cruelty. If she truly bears no witch's mark, strip her magic before us. Alara's heart pounded. You can't. Silence, snapped the court herald. The Council of Alphas will judge. She looked to Darius, hoping for, she didn't know what. But the king's expression didn't change. His power filled the hall, icy and suffocating, but his voice was calm when he spoke. Enough. I summoned her here not for spectacle, but for truth. He rose, descending the steps with slow, deliberate grace. Every motion reminded the court who he was, the Alpha King, the wolf who had ruled 30 years without rival. When he stopped before her, his presence swallowed the air between them. Tell them what happened, he said quietly. She met his gaze. I don't know what happened. I came for medicine for my brother. Then, I saw you. And something inside me broke loose. Whispers rippled through the hall. And your blood. Lord Varric pressed. The healer reports unnatural recovery. Scars that vanish in hours.
Cuts that close before bleeding.
Explain that. I can't, Alara said truthfully. Then allow me, Darius said. The hall fell silent as he turned toward the nobles. Her healing is the mark of silver blood, an ancient lineage once thought extinct. You know the tales. Wolves who carried the moon's own light. Their blood can heal, protect, strengthen, if wielded wisely. Varric's face twisted. That bloodline was purged for good reason. Their power corrupted the first kings. Or saved them, countered Darius. Depending on who wrote your histories. Before Varric could answer, the chamber doors slammed open. A guard stumbled inside, panting, half-shifted and bleeding. My king, attack. The eastern wall, shadow beasts. The hall erupted into motion. Darius's power surged, his eyes flashing gold. Evacuate the court, he barked. Run. Take the council to safety.
Now. No, Alara blurted.
Let me help. You'll do no such thing, Darius snapped. Stay here. But even as he turned to go, something dark and wet seeped through the door behind the guard. A shape made of smoke and hunger, its edges writhing like liquid night. Its eyes were hollow. It sent, wrong, wrong, wrong. The noble screamed as the creature lunged. Alara didn't think, she moved. Instinct took her body before her mind caught up. The air around her pulsed silver, her wolf roaring awake. When the creature struck, its claws never touched her. Instead, its shadow burst into light, torn apart by a shockwave that came from her. The entire hall froze. Alara stared at her trembling hands. They glowed faintly, veins traced in argent light. The beast hissed, reforming, lunging again, but Darius intercepted, shifting mid-motion into his massive, white wolf. His jaws clamped down on the creature, tearing through shadow as though it were flesh. It screamed and dissolved into smoke. When the last wisp faded, the great wolf turned toward Alara, for bristling, eyes molten gold. Their wolves reached for each other through the bond, the connection blazing stronger than before. He shifted back to human form, breathing hard, blood streaking his arm where shadow claws had grazed him. You, he said softly, stepping closer. You destroyed it with light. I don't know how. Her voice trembled. Ron approached warily, eyes flicking between them. Those weren't wolves, he said. They were corrupted things. We haven't seen such creatures since the Shadow Wars. Darius nodded grimly, which means someone or something has broken the old seals. He turned back to Alara, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. Your blood healed you. It destroyed Shadow. It woke my wolf. He paused. The goddess didn't send you to curse me, Alara Thornvale. She sent you to save me. The hall was silent except for the slow drip of melted frost from the ceiling. Alara took a step back. Save you? I can barely save myself. You will, he said simply, because from this moment forward, you are under my protection. The court will treat you as what you are, the mate of their king. Gasps filled the hall. Alara's wolf howled inside her chest. I'm not your queen, she whispered. His eyes softened.
No.
But you will be. And though her heart screamed to run, the bond between them flared, silver and white threads intertwining, sealing a fate neither of them could yet escape. Snow still drifted through the broken windows of the throne hall when Darius ordered the fires lit. The air reeked of burnt shadow and iron. Alara sat near the hearth, her hands trembling, the silver light under her skin fading slowly. She wasn't sure what frightened her more, the monsters that had attacked or the fact that something inside her had answered them. Across the room, the king spoke quietly with Commander Run and a circle of his advisors. Alara couldn't hear their words, but she didn't need to. Every glance that flicked her way carried the same message. She doesn't belong here. Breathe, she whispered to herself, gripping her knees. Don't break.
Not now.
But her wolf stirred restlessly, drawn to the pull of his aura, to the bond thrumming like a heartbeat between them. When the council dispersed, Darius crossed the room toward her. The glow of the fire danced over his face, softening the edges that had seemed carved from stone. You're unharmed, he asked. She nodded. Mostly.
Good.
I'd rather not have to rebuild the entire citadel on my first day of feeling emotions again. She almost smiled. Almost. Your sense of humor's worse than your bedside manner. A faint spark of amusement flickered in his eyes. I don't get much practice. The silence that followed was heavy but not cold. When she finally met his gaze, something shifted, like the faint crack of ice before spring thaw. I've sent scouts to track where the shadows came from, he said. Whatever attacked us wasn't random. Someone sent them. Alara frowned. Someone who knew about me. Yes.
He looked down, jaw tight.
That means your presence here has already drawn attention from enemies who'd rather I stayed cursed. She swallowed. So, I've made your life more complicated. A corner of his mouth twitched. You've made it alive. That silenced her more effectively than any command. Later that night, Darius led her through the citadel's upper corridors. Guards bowed low as they passed, their gazes flicking between awe and fear. Where are we going? She asked. To the archives. There may be records of silver bloodlines left before the purges. They entered a vast chamber filled with ancient scrolls and crystal tablets glowing faintly in the dim light. The air smelled of dust and magic. Darius traced his fingers along the spines of old tomes. After the Shadow Wars, anything touched by the moon's magic was branded dangerous. Even healers were executed. Your family must have hidden for generations. Alara touched a symbol etched on a nearby pillar, a crescent entwined with a wolf's fang. The instant her skin met the stone, it flared with silver light. Darius froze. The glow spread, lines of light weaving across the floor in intricate patterns until they formed a sigil beneath their feet. The magic pulsed once, then sank into the ground, leaving only silence. What did you do? He asked quietly. I don't know. A whisper answered her, soft as wind through leaves, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. Moonfire cannot exist without shadow. The word sent a chill through her spine. Darius's wolf bristled beneath his skin. That's the goddess's tongue, he murmured. No one has heard it in centuries. The air thickened. Images flickered behind Alara's eyes, a battlefield of ice and silver flames, a wolf crowned in light, a shadow devouring the sun. She gasped and stumbled, gripping the king's arm. Alara. When the vision faded, she was shaking. The curse on your wolf, it wasn't just magic. It was meant to seal something inside you. And whatever it is, it's breaking free. He stared at her. You saw this?
Yes.
And I think my blood woke it. Run burst through the door, breathless. My king. Another attack. On the outer wall. Darius's composure snapped into command. Mobilize the North Guard. Get the civilians into the inner keep. Run hesitated. The creatures are hunting her. They follow her scent. Alara stiffened. Then I should go with you. Darius turned to her sharply. You'll stay in the keep. I can help. No, his voice was harsh, but his eyes betrayed the flicker of something else. Fear. If they take you, the bond. He stopped himself, jaw tightening. She stepped closer, refusing to be cowed. If I stay hidden while others die, what kind of mate does that make me? His expression hardened into that of a king again, the kind who survives. Then let me decide what I survive. They stared at each other, the air between them alive with the pull of something deeper than dominance or duty. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might argue. Then he exhaled, low and rough.
Fine, he said.
But you stay beside me. Always. Always. He leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. Until the goddess herself tears you away. Outside, the snowstorm had turned crimson under the glow of fire. The city burned as wolves fought shadows that moved like living night. Alera's power pulsed again beneath her skin, silver light spilling between her fingers. Darius shifted beside her, his massive white wolf snarling at the enemy lines. As they charged together into the storm, light and shadow collided in a burst that shook the mountains. For the first time since the curse began, the frozen king's heart was warm. The storm raged through the night. When the first light of dawn bled over Frostmark, the battlefield was quiet, save for the hiss of melting snow and the low moans of the wounded. Alera stumbled through the rubble, her dress torn, her hands slick with blood that wasn't her own. The metallic tang of it filled her nose, thick and nauseating. Her wolf whimpered inside her chest. She saw him then, King Darius, half buried beneath a fallen column, his fur matted crimson. His wolf form was still, breath shallow. The white coat that had gleamed in the moonlight now looked gray with soot. No, no, no. She dropped to her knees beside him, shoving stone and debris away with trembling hands. His blood steamed in the snow. When she touched him, her wolf surged forward, wild and desperate. The bond flared so fiercely she nearly screamed. Darius, she whispered, pressing her palm to his heart. Stay with me. His eyes flickered open, just for a moment. You shouldn't be here, he rasped. I'm not leaving you. Alera, his voice was broken ice. If my wolf dies, I die too. She shook her head, tears freezing on her cheeks. Then you won't die. The glow began before she realized what she was doing. Her blood responded to the bond, to the pull between their souls. Silver light pulsed from her skin, flowing through her veins and into his wounds like liquid moonfire. The air crackled with energy so pure it burned. The wound on his side sizzled, closing under her touch. Scars faded. The pale color returned to his face. Then the light grew brighter. Too bright. Her wolf howled inside her mind. He's taking too much. She gasped as the silver fire spread from her chest to her fingertips, flooding into him, leaving her cold, hollow. Darius's body arched, his wolf fighting the surge of magic. The snow around them melted in seconds. Then, with a sound like thunder, his aura exploded outward, pure, blinding power that rippled through the ruined citadel. He shifted, bones cracking, fur bursting from his skin. Not white this time, but silver, streaked with flame-like patterns of light. The curse that had bound his wolf for decades was gone. Alera collapsed beside him, gasping for air. The great silver wolf turned his head toward her. His eyes glowed with molten gold, fierce and alive. He stepped closer, lowering his muzzle until it brushed her cheek. Warmth. Safety. Home. The bond thrummed between them, no longer fragile, no longer uncertain. Complete. And then, just as suddenly, he shifted back. Darius stood over her, breathing hard, his bare skin steaming in the frigid air. Alera, he whispered. What did you do? I healed you. He knelt, gripping her shoulders. You did more than heal me. You bound us. Her stomach turned. What do you mean? He looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath. There's no one doing it now. Our souls are one. If you die, I die. She flinched. That's not possible.
It wasn't, he said.
Until you. The weight of his words hit her like stone. He rose, helping her to her feet, his expression unreadable.
Come.
You need rest. Hours later, Alara lay in a chamber overlooking the shattered city. Below, the fires were dying, but the smoke still rose, ghosts of what they'd lost. She couldn't sleep. Every beat of her heart echoed against the pulse of another, his. She could feel him, even across the castle. The bond was a living thing now, breathing with them, whispering in both their minds. Mine, his wolf murmured through the link. She jolted upright. Stop that.
Can't.
She buried her face in her hands. This is insane. But despite the panic, a treacherous warmth spread through her chest. Elsewhere, in the war council chamber, Commander Run and several nobles knelt before Darius's throne. The shadows retreated, Run reported. But they'll return. Whoever commands them knows her blood is the key. Darius's expression darkened. Let them come. They'll find nothing but ruin. My king, said Lord Varric coldly, you can't deny what's clear. The Omega has bewitched you. The bond must be broken before she destroys the order of our kind. The temperature dropped sharply. Frost bloomed across the floor. Watch your words, Darius warned. The court won't stand for this. Varric pressed on. A Silverblood Omega, as queen? The Pax will revolt. Then let them, Darius said, rising to his full height. I'd rather fight every pack in the north than betray the mate the goddess chose for me. Run bowed low, trying to diffuse the tension. My king, if the shadows seek her, perhaps we can use that. Find where they come from. Darius's gaze softened slightly. Then we hunt, quietly, before the council moves against her. That night, Alara dreamed of a field of silver fire, of wolves made of light and shadow tearing at each other. When she woke, the king was standing by her window, shirtless, moonlight tracing the scars that even her magic hadn't erased completely. He didn't turn when he spoke. I felt your fear. She hugged the blanket tighter. You shouldn't listen to my dreams. I can't help it. The bond doesn't care for privacy. She swallowed. Then you felt it too, the darkness behind the shadows. He nodded slowly. A presence older than curses. The same force that froze my wolf decades ago. What does it want? His eyes met hers, burning gold in the moonlight. You. The silence stretched until she whispered. Then you'll have to protect me. He took a step closer. No, he said, voice rough with something between vow and warning. We protect each other. And for the first time, she believed him. 3 days passed in a blur of whispered counsels and sleepless nights. The fires in Frostmark were extinguished, but the unease that spread through the citadel was colder than the snow outside. Everywhere Alara went, wolves stopped talking when she passed. Some bowed their heads respectfully, their eyes filled with fear. Others turned away, muttering prayers under their breath. The word Silverblood traveled faster than any rumor. She could hear it in their thoughts, tiny ripples along the new bond that tied her to Darius. They think I'm a weapon. You are, he said one evening as they stood together on the ramparts, looking out over the frozen city. She glanced at him, startled. You can't just read my thoughts. He smiled faintly, not denying it. You're a weapon forged by the moon goddess herself. That doesn't mean you're a curse. Tell that to your council. His jaw clenched. They'll learn soon enough that I won't tolerate their whispers. She turned to face him fully. You can't fight an entire court for me, Darius. I can and I will. Her heart twisted. Then you'll lose everything you built. He stepped closer, his power rolling off him in waves, but his voice was quiet. Everything I built was empty before you. The words hit her like an arrow. Simple, brutal truth. The frozen king, who had never wanted a mate, was thawing before her eyes. That night, she woke to the sound of shouting. The door to her chamber burst open and Commander Run strode in, his expression grim. My lady, he said, bowing quickly. You need to come with me. Now. What's happened? The council has declared a provisional edict. They've seized control of the throne in the king's absence. The king's what? He left hours ago. He went north to intercept the shadow horde himself. Alone. Alera's blood went cold. The bond inside her pulsed erratically, a heartbeat out of rhythm. He wouldn't, he promised. His Majesty wanted you safe, Run said quietly. He didn't trust the council to protect you while he fought, but he underestimated them. Outside, bells rang through the night, 3 long peals, the signal for treason. The council chamber was chaos. Alphas shouted over one another, banners of ancient houses torn from the walls. At the center stood Lord Varric, his silver hair gleaming like a blade. She endangers us all, he thundered. The shadows follow her scent. The king has fallen under her spell, and now the throne itself trembles. We must sever the bond before she brings ruin upon Frostmark. Run stepped in front of Alera, hand on his sword. You'll do no such thing.
Stand aside, Commander, Varric sneered.
You serve the crown, not the king's pet. Alera's wolf snapped, silver light rippling beneath her skin. Say that again. Gasps filled the hall as her power flared, luminous veins tracing her arms. The nobles stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the glow. Varric smiled coldly. You see? She can't control it. He raised a blade of dark iron, wolfbane forged, she realized in horror. End her before she brings the darkness through our gates. He lunged. Run moved to intercept, but Varric's guards restrained him. The blade was already descending when a voice like thunder shook the hall. Enough. The doors exploded open, and King Darius stepped through, eyes blazing gold, armor scorched, his hair tangled with frost and blood. He hadn't gone north after all. The sight of him stole Alera's breath. The wolf inside her howled in recognition and relief. Your Majesty, Varric stammered, lowering his weapon. We thought. Darius's gaze locked onto the blade in Varric's hand. You thought to strike my mate. He crossed the hall in 2 strides and seized the alpha by the throat. Frost spread from his fingers, crawling up Varric's skin as he gasped for breath. Please, Your Majesty. Alera stepped forward. Darius, stop. He didn't hear her or didn't care. His wolf was in control now, furious and unrestrained. She placed a trembling hand on his arm. If you kill him, you prove them right. His power faltered. Slowly, painfully, he loosened his grip and dropped the man to the floor. Varric crumpled, gasping. The king turned to the gathered nobles, his voice like a storm. The next wolf who raises a hand against my queen will lose it. The next who questions her place will forfeit their pack. Silence. Now, he said, eyes still burning gold. Bow to your queen. One by one they knelt. Alera stood beside him, heart hammering, her wolf trembling at the raw dominance that rolled off him. When the last noble lowered his head, Darius turned to her. You see? They'll obey or freeze. She stared at him, torn between awe and fear. You can't lead them through fear forever. His expression softened. Then help me lead them through faith. Later, when the hall was empty and the fires burned low, he caught her by the hand. Don't ever risk yourself like that again, he said roughly. If I'd been a moment later. You weren't, she interrupted. His thumb brushed her jaw, tilting her face upward. You shouldn't have to stand alone against them. But I'm your equal, she whispered. You said so yourself. He hesitated, then leaned close until their foreheads touched. You are. And that terrifies me. The bond between them pulsed, warm and alive. Then be terrified, she said softly. Just don't shut me out again. He smiled, a small, broken thing that thawed the last of the frost in her heart. I don't think I could, even if I tried. Outside, the aurora shimmered over the mountains, green and silver waves lighting the night sky. But deep beneath Frostmark, in caverns no wolf had entered in centuries, something ancient stirred. A voice whispered through the stone. The bond is complete. The seal is breaking. The Silver Queen has awakened the king's true wolf, and with it, his curse. The aurora still shimmered when Alera jolted awake, gasping for breath. Her wolf was restless, her pulse thundering with borrowed panic. For a moment, She didn't know why, until the bond flared, sharp and painful. Darius. She threw off her blankets and ran. The corridors were empty, cold air rushing against her bare feet as she sprinted toward the royal wing. Guards called out, startled, but she ignored them. The pull of the bond was too strong. Wild, uncontrolled, full of fury that wasn't hers. She burst into the great hall. The air crackled with magic and frost. Darius stood at the center, bare-chested, his body trembling with effort. Silver fire flared along his arms, searing the stone beneath his hands. Darius. He turned toward her, but the eyes that met hers weren't entirely his. They blazed molten gold threaded with black veins of shadow. His wolf was awake, but something else was awake with it. "Stay back," he growled, voice layered with something dark. "I can't control it." "Then let me help you." He staggered backward, shaking his head. "Alara, it's not safe." The curse. His body convulsed, a snarl ripping from his throat. The temperature plummeted, and frost spread like veins across the floor. For a heartbeat, she saw his wolf flash beneath his skin, massive, silver-furred, and glowing with light and darkness entwined. "Alara," he choked, falling to one knee. "If I shift now, I'll destroy everything in this room." She knelt before him, ignoring the frost biting into her knees. "Then let me ground you." Her hands touched his face. Power surged through the bond, and for a moment, his breathing steadied. But then, a shadow coiled behind his eyes. A voice, low and ancient, whispered through him. "You freed the wolf, Silver One. But you freed me too." The sound wasn't Darius. It was something older, colder. A darkness that slithered beneath his skin. Alara's blood ran cold. "Who are you?" The shadow laughed. "The part the goddess couldn't kill. The hunger beneath his power. The reason she sealed him." Darius roared, trying to fight it, but his body was no longer entirely his own. The frost on the ground began to turn black. "Get out of him!" Alara shouted, her wolf rising in defense. Silver light flared from her palms, searing through the darkness. The entity recoiled, hissing. "You can't banish me, Moonblood. You and I are bound by the same creation." Then, with one violent pulse, Darius collapsed, the black frost shattering around him like glass. He woke hours later, trembling, drenched in sweat. Alara sat beside him, eyes hollow with exhaustion. "You are gone," she whispered. "Something else was inside you." He pushed himself upright, wincing. "The curse. The priests who sealed my wolf, they didn't just silence it. They locked a part of something darker inside me. Something ancient." "What is it?" He hesitated. "My father called it the Nightborn. A remnant of the Shadow King's essence from the war 3 centuries ago. When the goddess bound it, she needed a vessel. My bloodline was chosen." Her stomach dropped. "So your wolf wasn't dormant. It was imprisoned."
"Yes."
And when you woke it, he met her gaze, guilt shadowing his eyes. "You broke the chains." She rose, pacing. "Then this isn't just about us. If that thing is alive inside you." "It's more than alive," he said quietly. "It's waiting. It wants you." She froze. "Me?" The goddess's light and the shadow's remnant were never meant to coexist. Together, they create power strong enough to unmake the world. That's what it's after. You and me bound. Alara shook her head. "We already are." He nodded grimly. "Which means the prophecy's in motion." Later, in the council archives, Run unrolled an ancient scroll, its ink faded but still legible. "The prophecy of the silver wolf," he read, says, "when light awakens shadow, the moon's chosen will rise. One shall save the world. One shall end it."
Silence.
Alara whispered, "So one of us dies." "No," Darius's voice was iron. "Prophecies can be broken. We'll find another way." Run hesitated. "If the Nightborn is feeding on your wolf, it will grow stronger the longer it remains unchallenged. My king, it may already be corrupting your bond." Alara turned sharply.
"No."
Darius said nothing, but the faint tremor in his hand told her run was right. That night, she dreamed again. A moon split in two. A wolf of light and a wolf of shadow tearing at each other's throats. And a voice whispering through the darkness, "You cannot love him without destroying him." She woke crying. When Darius found her, she was sitting on the floor by the window, trembling. He knelt, cupping her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. "Don't believe what you saw," he said softly. "Whatever this curse is, it won't break us. But what if I'm what it wants? Then let it come for both of us," he murmured, "because it won't touch you while I breathe." She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "You can't protect me from destiny." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll protect you from the goddess herself." Far below Frostmark, deep in the catacombs beneath the citadel, black frost crept along ancient runes. The air trembled with the pulse of a heartbeat that did not belong to any living wolf. And in the whispering dark, the Nightborn stirred. "Soon," it hissed, "light and shadow will become one. The Silver Queen will burn the world, and the Frozen King will beg me to let him die." The wind over Frostmark howled like a living thing that morning, angry, ancient warning. From the northern towers, black frost crept along the stone battlements, and every wolf in the kingdom felt it in their bones. The curse had awakened. Deep beneath the citadel, King Darius Valar and Elara Thornvale stood at the threshold of the Catacombs of Kings, a place no one had entered in 3 centuries. The iron doors groaned open under the king's touch, his blood unlocking seals older than the throne itself. Cold air poured out, thick with the smell of ash and something darker, like the scent of burnt fur and nightmares. "This is where they bound it," Darius said, his voice rough, echoing off the walls. "The priests of the moon goddess sealed the Nightborn here after the Shadow War. My ancestor offered his wolf as the vessel." Alara's breath fogged in the air. "And when I broke your curse, you broke the lock," he finished grimly. "Now it's trying to escape through me." They descended the narrow steps, torches flaring to life on their own. The further they went, the colder it became. Not the natural chill of stone, but something that gnawed at warmth itself. Alara's wolf bristled under her skin, a low growl building in her throat. "He's in pain," it whispered. "We have to hurry." She glanced at Darius. His usual steadiness had started to fray. The glow of silver around his eyes was threaded now with veins of black. "Don't look at me like that," he said quietly, half a smile curving his lips. "I'm not gone yet. You're fading." He didn't deny it. "Then we end this before the Nightborn does." The catacombs opened into a vast chamber, the Sanctum of Seals, its walls carved with wolf sigils and moon runes that pulsed faintly, as if alive. At its center stood a cracked obsidian monolith, taller than any man, wrapped in chains of silver that smoked where the darkness pressed against them. Elara stopped short. The air around it vibrated with whispers. "That's not a prison," she murmured. "It's a heartbeat." The voice that answered her wasn't human. "Little Moonblood, you finally came back." The shadows coalesced, forming the outline of a massive wolf, all smoke and ember eyes. Darius drew his sword, light flaring along the blade. "You'll speak only to me, not to her." The creature chuckled, the sound like cracking stone. "You think she's yours? She was mine long before you were born. My other half, the goddess's mistake." Elara stepped forward, defiant. "I'm nothing like you. Aren't you? You carry her light, I carry her shadow. Together, we make the balance she feared. That's why she tore us apart." Its gaze shifted to Darius, and the black frost beneath him pulsed. "And you, King, you are my doorway." The floor split. Darius lunged forward, slashing through the mist. Silver met shadow, and the impact sent shockwaves through the chamber. The runes on the walls flared, then shattered like glass. The Nightborn's laughter filled the air. "The bond ties you together. What one feels, the other shares. So tell me, Silver King, what happens if she bleeds?" Elara screamed as a slash of invisible claws cut across her arm. Blood hit the floor, silver and luminous. The shadow inhaled it like perfume, shuddering with delight. Stop. Darius roared, his wolf form rippling beneath his skin. Leave her. I can't. You brought her here. You made her my key. Elara fell to her knees, clutching her wound. The darkness was seeping into her blood, spreading like ink through water. Her heartbeat faltered. Darius, she gasped. It's using me through the bond. He dropped beside her, gripping her shoulders. Then break the link. Her eyes filled with tears. If I break it, you'll die. He smiled, faint, weary, the way dying men smile before the dawn. Then die together. Don't you dare. Elara, his voice cracked. I spent 30 years feeling nothing. Empty. Frozen. You gave me back my fire. If this is how it ends, then so be it. No, her voice hardened. That's not the man I bonded with. Silver light flared between them, burning away the shadow clinging to her veins. Her wolf rose fully now, glowing beneath her skin. Luminous, wild, beautiful. She pressed her palm to his chest, right over his heart. We fight together, remember? He covered her hand with his own, and their bond ignited, silver and gold flames spiraling around them. The Nightborn howled, its form tearing at the edges. You can't destroy me. It roared. I am your darkness. Then we burn together, Elara said, and drove her power into the core of the monolith. The light exploded. When the smoke cleared, the catacombs were silent. The monolith was gone. Darius lay on the ground, unmoving. Darius. Elara crawled to him, shaking his shoulders. His skin was cold, too cold. She pressed her forehead against his chest, sobbing. Don't leave me. Then, faintly, his breath stirred against her hair. I told you, he murmured weakly. We fight together. Relief broke through her tears, but it didn't last long. The darkness hadn't vanished. It had simply retreated, curling beneath the stone like smoke waiting for wind. Above them, the runes flickered back to life, and a voice, soft, ethereal, familiar, echoed through the air. The seal holds for now. But light cannot exist without shadow, child. When the moon wanes, he will rise again. Elara lifted her gaze toward the voice. Goddess. You have bought him time, the voice whispered. But the bond that saved him will also unmake him. You cannot carry his darkness forever. Alara's heart clenched. Then take it from me. Silence. Then, a whisper like a sad smile. Would you truly bear the shadow alone? I already do, she said, her voice shaking. And I'll keep doing it as long as he breathes. The light dimmed. The voice faded. And in the lingering silence, Elara looked down at Darius, her king, her curse, her home, and realized that the goddess's prophecy wasn't about destruction. It was about choice. For 3 days and 3 nights, Frostmark slept under heavy clouds. The snow did not fall. The wind did not move. Even the moon hid behind the veil of silence that followed the battle beneath the citadel. Elara hadn't left Darius's side. He lay in the royal chambers, the bed draped with furs, his skin pale as the marble beneath him. The healers could do nothing. Every wound she'd closed with her power had reopened, leaking faint black threads of smoke instead of blood. It wasn't dying. It was undoing. Her hands trembled as she pressed another silver glow into his chest, willing it to stick, to hold. Please, she whispered. Just breathe. His body shuddered once, then stilled. And for the first time since the goddess's voice faded, Elara felt fear, not for the curse, not for herself, but for the terrifying thought that she had saved him only to lose him now. She heard footsteps. Commander Runvalin entered quietly, the flickering light of the hearth tracing the exhaustion in his face. My lady, he said softly, bowing his head. The council has been dealt with. Varric fled the north. The packs are loyal for now. Elara didn't answer. Her hand still rested on Darius's chest, feeling for a heartbeat that refused to return. Run hesitated. There are whispers. Some believe your power sealed the Nightborn. Others say you bound it inside yourself. She looked up, silver eyes bright with exhaustion and quiet truth. They're right. Run froze. You what? When I touched the seal, she said, voice distant. The goddess gave me a choice. Let the Nightborn die with him, or take part of it into me. I chose him. By the gods. Alara smiled faintly, a bitter thing. Don't call them that. The gods don't bleed for what they create. That night, when the others had gone, the storm broke. Rain, not snow, fell over Frostmark for the first time in living memory. It pattered against the windows, soft and relentless. Alara dozed in the chair beside Darius's bed, her wolf restless under her skin. A faint pulse tugged at the bond, a spark she hadn't felt for hours. Then, always, he whispered. Her eyes flew open. He was awake, barely but alive. You came back, she breathed, tears spilling over her cheeks. His hand, trembling, found hers. You didn't give me a choice. She laughed through the tears, pressing his palm to her face. I thought I'd lost you. You did, he murmured, voice raw. And then you call me back. The bond between them thrummed, warm, steady, no longer burning with pain but alive with something fierce and quiet. Rest, she said, brushing his hair from his forehead. You're safe now. He smiled faintly. You're a terrible liar. In the days that followed, the kingdom began to rebuild. The citadel's broken towers were repaired, the dead were honored with songs beneath the aurora, and the wolves of Frostmark whispered new legends of the Silver Queen who burned shadows with her hands and the frozen king who melted for her. But beneath the peace, Alara could feel it, small tremors in her veins, a whisper of dark power that wasn't hers. At night, when the moon waned, her reflection flickered in the mirror, her eyes flashing black for a heartbeat. Each time, she pushed it down. Each time, it pushed harder back. One evening, she found Darius on the ramparts, staring at the horizon where the storm clouds met the mountains. The silver in his hair caught the last of the sun. The Pax will look to you now, he said, his tone heavy but not cold. They call you Lenara, the goddess reborn.
Himnogoddess.
No, he agreed. You're something rarer. She leaned on the railing beside him, watching the faint trails of smoke from the rebuilding villages below. Do you ever think it's over? His hand found hers. I think peace is borrowed time. She smiled sadly. Then we borrow it together. He turned to her, brushing a thumb along the faint scar on her neck. The mark where their souls had bound. Together. That night, as she lay beside him, she dreamed again. A forest of silver trees under a full moon. A wolf of shadow pacing the edge of her light. It smiled with her own lips and whispered, You can't cage what you've become. When she woke, the moonlight spilling through the window was black. At dawn, Darius found her standing barefoot in the snow, her hair glowing faintly silver, eyes wide open but unfocused. Alara, he said gently, stepping closer. She turned slowly, her voice layered, hers, and something deeper beneath. He's coming back. He reached for her hand, steadying her. Then we face him, like we always do. Her gaze softened for a heartbeat, the darkness retreating just enough for her to whisper, Always. From the cliffs beyond Frostmark, the wind carried a single howl, part light, part shadow, echoing into eternity. And as the snow began to fall again, the people of the north whispered a new prayer. When the moon burns silver and the wolf walks in shadow, love will save the broken, or end the world trying. A year later, Frostmark thrived. The court called them the Two Flames, one born of ice, one born of moonfire. Together they ruled a kingdom reborn from frost and shadow, their bond a living myth. But sometimes, when the nights grew too still and the aurora flickered crimson instead of green, Alara would wake from her dreams with her hand pressed against her heart, feeling two pulses instead of one. And somewhere deep below the citadel, in the old catacombs where the chains had cracked, the stones still whispered in two voices. Light and shadow. King and queen. Forever bound. In the end, it wasn't the goddess who decided their fate. It was love, raw, fragile, and defiant enough to stand between light and shadow. Darius and Alara didn't just survive their curse, they rewrote it. But the story doesn't end here, because every time the moon wanes, somewhere, the darkness still remembers her name. If you felt the pull of this world, the frost, the fire, the bond that burns through fate itself, then join us. Subscribe for more dark fantasy love stories, where hearts break, magic bites, and destiny always demands its price. Until next time, keep your fire alive and your shadows close.